Book 5, Canto 10, The Legend of Artegall. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Carolyn Power. The Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser. Book 5, Canto 10, The Legend of Artegall. Prince Arthur takes the enterprise for Belgie for to fight. Geronio's seneschal he slays in Belge's right. Some clerks do doubt in their deviceful art, whether this heavenly thing, whereof I treat, to weeten mercy be of justice part, or drawn forth from her by divine extreat. This well I wot, that sure she is as great, and meriteth to have as high a place. Sith in the Almighty's everlasting seat, she first was bred, and born of heavenly race, from thence poured down on men by influence of grace. For if that virtue be of so great might, which from just verdict will for nothing start, but to preserve inviolated right, oft spills the principal to save the part, so much more than is that of power and art, that seeks to save the subject of her skill, yet never doth from doom of right depart, as it is greater praise to save than spill, and better to reform than to cut off the ill. Who then can thee, Mercilla, truly praise, that herein dost all earthly princes pass? What heavenly muse shall thy great honour raise up to the skies, whence first derived it was, and now on earth itself enlarged it has, from the utmost brink of the Americ shore, unto the margent of the Moluccas? Those nations far thy justice do adore, but thine own people do thy mercy praise much more. Much more it praised was of those two knights, the noble prince and righteous Artegall, when they had seen and heard her doom arights against Duessa damned by them all, but by her tempered without grief or gall, till strong constraint did her thereto enforce, and yet even then ruing her wilful fall with more than needful natural remorse, and yielding the last honour to her wretched course. During all which those knights continued there, both doing and receiving courtesies, of that great lady, who with goodly cheer them entertained, fit for their dignities, approving daily to their noble eyes royal examples of her mercies rare, and worthy patterns of her clemencies, which till this day mongst many living are, who them to their posterities do still declare. Amongst the rest, which in that space befell, there came two springalls of full tender years, far thence from foreign land, where they did dwell, to seek for succour of her and her peers, with humble prayers and entreatful tears, sent by their mother, who a widow was, wrapt in great dolours and in deadly fears, by a strong tyrant, who invaded has her land, and slain her children ruefully, alas. Her name was Belgue, who in former age a lady of great worth and wealth had been, and mother of a fruitful heritage, even 17 goodly sons, which who had seen in their first flower, before this fatal teen them overtook, and their fair blossoms blasted, more happy mother would her surely weene, than famous Niobe, before she tasted Latone's children's wrath, that all her issue wasted. But this fell tyrant, through his tortuous power, had left her now but 5 of all that brood, for 12 of them he did by times devour, and to his idols sacrifice their blood. Whilest he of none was stopped, nor withstood. For soothly he was one of matchless might, of horrible aspect and dreadful mood, and had 3 bodies in one vast empite, and arms and legs of 3 to succour him in fight. And sooth they say that he was born and bred of giants' race, the son of Geryon, he that whilom in Spain so sore was dread, for his huge power and great oppression, which brought that land to his subjection, through his 3 bodies' power in one combined, and eke all strangers in that region, arriving, to his kin for food assigned, the fairest kin alive, but of the fiercest kind. For they were all, they say, of purple hue, kept by a cowherd hight Eurytion, a cruel carle, the which all strangers slew, ne day nor night did sleep to tend them on, but walked about them ever and anon, with his two-headed dog, that Orthrus hight, Orthrus begotten by great Typhaon, and foul Echidna in the house of night, but Hercules them all did overcome in fight. His son was this, Gerionio hight, who after that his monstrous father fell under Alcides' club, straight took his flight from that sad land, where he his sire did quell, and came to this, where Belgae then did dwell, and flourish in all wealth and happiness, being then new made widow, as befell, after her noble husband's late decease, which gave beginning to her woe and wretchedness. Then this bold tyrant of her widowhead, taking advantage, and her yet fresh woes, himself and service to her offered, her to defend against all foreign foes, that should their power against her right oppose. Whereof she glad, now needing strong defence, him entertained, and did her champion chose, which long he used with careful diligence, the better to confirm her fearless confidence. By means whereof she did at last commit all to his hands, and gave him sovereign power, to do whatever he thought good or fit, which having got, he gan forth from that hour to stir up strife, and many a tragic star, giving her dearest children one by one unto a dreadful monster to devour, and setting up an idol of his own, the image of his monstrous parent, Geryon. So tyrannizing and oppressing all, the woeful widow had no means now left, but unto gracious great Mercilla call for aid against the cruel tyrant's theft, ere all her children he from her had reft. Therefore these two, her eldest sons, she sent, to seek for succour of this lady's gift, to whom their suit they humbly did present, in the hearing of full many knights and ladies gent. Amongst the which then fortuned to be the noble Briton prince, with his brave peer, who when he none of all those knights did see hastily bent that enterprise to hear, nor undertake the same for coward fear, he stepped forth with courage bold and great, admired of all the rest in presence there, and humbly gan that mighty Queene entreat, to graunt him that adventure for his former feat. She gladly graunted it. Then he straightway himself unto his journey gan prepare, and all his armours ready dight that day, that nought the morrow next mote stay his fare. The morrow next appeared, with purple hair yet dropping fresh out of the Indian fount, and bringing light into the heavens fair, when he was ready to his steed to mount, unto his way, which now was all his care and count. Then taking humble leave of that great Queene, who gave him royal gifts and riches rare, as tokens of her thankful mind beseen, and leaving Artegall to his own care, upon his voyage forth he gan to fare, with those two gentle youths which him did guide, and all his way before him still prepare. Nay, after him did Artegall abide, but on his first adventure forward forth did ride. It was not long till that the prince arrived within the land where dwelt that lady sad, whereof that tyrant had her now deprived, and into moors and marshes banished had, out of the pleasant soil and cities glad, in which she wont to harbour happily, but now his cruelty so sore she drad, that to those fens for fastness she did flee, and there herself did hide from his hard tyranny. There he her found in sorrow and dismay, all solitary, without living wight, for all her other children through a fray had hid themselves, or taken further flight. And eke herself through sudden strange affright, when one in arms she saw, began to flee. But when her own two sons she had in sight, she gan take heart, and look up joyfully, for well she wist this knight came succour to supply. And running unto them with greedy joys, fell straight about their necks as they did kneel, and bursting forth in tears, "Ah, my sweet boys," said she, "yet now I gin new life to feel, and feeble spirits that gan faint and reel, now rise again at this your joyous sight. Already seems that fortune's headlong wheel begins to turn, and sun to shine more bright, Then it was wont, through comfort of this noble knight. Then turning unto him, And you, Sir Knight, said she, that taken have this toilsome paine for wretched woman, miserable wight, may you in heaven immortal guerdon gaine, for so great travell, as you do sustaine. For other meed may hope for none of me, to whom nought else but bare life doth remaine. And that so wretched one as ye do see, is liker lingering death than loathed life to be. Much was he moved with her piteous plight, and lo dismounting from his lofty steed, gan to recomfort her all that he might, seeking to drive away deep-rooted dreed, with hope of help in that her greatest need. So thence he wished her with him to wend, unto some place where they mote rest and feed, and she take comfort, which God now did send. Good heart in evils doth the evils much amend. Ay me, said she, and whither shall I go? Are not all places full of foreign powers? My palaces possessed of my foe, my cities sacked, and their sky-threatening towers raced and made smooth fields now full of flowers? Only these marshes, and merry bogs, in which the fearful youths do build their bowers, yield me an ustry amongst these croaking frogs, and harbour here in safety from those ravenous dogs. Natheless, said he, dear lady, with me go, some place shall us receive and harbour yield. If not, we will it force, maugre your foe, and purchase it to us with spear and shield. And if all fail, yet farewell open field, the earth to all her creatures lodging lends. With such his cheerful speeches he doth wield her mind so well, that to his will she bends, and binding up her locks and weeds, forth with him wends. They came unto a city far up land, the which whilome that lady's own had been, but now by force extort out of her hand, by her strong foe, who had defaced clean her stately towers, and buildings sunny sheen, shut up her haven, marred her merchants' trade, robbed her people that full rich had been, and in her neck a castle huge had made, the which did her command without needing persuade. That castle was the strength of all that state, until that state by strength was pulled down, and that same city, so now ruinate, had been the key of all that kingdom's crown, both goodly castle and both goodly town, till that defended heavens list to lower upon their bliss and baleful fortune frown, when those gainst states and kingdoms to conjure, who then can think their headlong ruin to recur? But he had brought it now in servile bond, and made it bear the yoke of inquisition, striving long time in vain it to withstand, yet glad at last to make most base submission, and life and joy for any composition. So now he hath new laws and orders new, imposed on it with many a hard condition, and forced it the honour that is due to God, to do unto his idol most untrue. To him he hath before this castle green built a fair chapel, and an altar framed of costly ivory, full rich beseen, on which that cursed idol far proclaimed he hath set up, and him his God hath named, offering to him in sinful sacrifice the flesh of men, to God's own likeness framed, and pouring forth their blood in brutish wise, that any iron eyes to see it would agrise. And for more horror and more cruelty under that cursed idol's altar stone an hideous monster doth in darkness lie, whose dreadful shape was never seen of none that lives on earth, but unto those alone, the which unto him sacrificed be. Those he devours, they say, both flesh and bone, what else they have is all the tyrant's fee, so that no whit of them remaining one may see. There eke he placed a strong garrison, and set a seneschal of dreaded might, that by his power pressed every one, and vanquished all venturous knights in fight, to whom he wont show all the shame he might, after that them in battle he had won, to which, when now they gan approach in sight, the lady counselled them the place to shun, whereas so many knights had foully been fordone. Her fearful speeches naught did he regard, but riding straight under the castle wall, called aloud unto the watchful ward, which there did wait, willing them forth to call into the field their tyrant seneschal, to whom when tidings thereof came, he straight calls for his arms, and arming him withal, eftsoons forth pricked proudly in his might, and gan with courage fierce address him to the fight. They both encounter in the middle plain, And their sharp spears do both together smite amid their shields with so huge might and main, that seemed their souls they would have riven quite out of their breasts with furious despite. Yet could the seneschals no entrance find into the Prince's shield, where it empight, so pure the metal was and well refined, but shivered all about and scattered in the wind. Not so the Princes, but with restless force into his shielded ready passage found, both through his habergeon and eke his course, which tumbling down upon the senseless ground, gave leave unto his ghost from thraldom bound, to wander in the griesly shades of night. There did the Prince him leave in deadly swound, and thence unto the castle marched right, to see if entrance there as yet obtain he might. But as he nigher drew, 3 knights he spied, all armed to point, issuing forth apace, which toward him with all their power did ride, and meeting him right in the middle race, did all their spears at taunts on him enchance. As 3 great culverings for battery bent, and levelled all against one certain place, do all at taunts their thunders rage forth rent, that makes the walls to stagger with astonishment. So all at once they on the Prince did thunder, who from his saddle swerved naught aside, ne to their force gave way, that was great wonder, but like a bulwark firmly did abide, rebutting him which in the midst did ride, with so huge rigour that his mortal spear passed through his shield and pierced through either side, that down he fell upon his mother dear, and poured forth his wretched life in deadly drear. Whom when his other fellows saw, they fled as fast as feet could carry them away, and after them the Prince as swiftly sped, to be avenged of their unknightly play. There whilst they entering, thun did th'other say, the hindmost in the gate he overhent, and as he pressed in, him there did slay, his carcase tumbling on the threshold, sent his groaning soul unto her place of punishment. The other, which was entered, laboured fast to spear the gate, but that same lump of clay, whose grudging ghost was thereout fled and past, right in the middest of the threshold lay, that it the postern did from closing stay, and whiles the Prince hard preased in between, and entrance won, straight the other fled away, and ran into the hole where he did weene himself to save, but he there slew him at the screen. Then all the rest, which in that castle were, seeing that sad ensample them before, durst not abide, but fled away for fear, and them conveyed out at a postern door. Long sought the Prince, but when he found no more to pose against his power, he forth issued unto that lady where he her had lore, and her gan cheer with what she there had viewed, and what she had not seen within unto her should. Who with right humble thanks him goodly greeting, for so great prowess as he there had proved, much greater than was ever in her weeting, with great admirance inwardly was moved, and honoured him with all that her behooved. Thenceforth into that castle he her led, with her 2 sons, right dear of her beloved, where all that night themselves they cherished, and from her baleful mind all care he banished. End of Canto 10, Book 5, The Legend of Artegall.